From his 60th floor penthouse in Manhattan, Aryan gazes out at the glittering lights of New York. But these lights don't just bring joy, they trigger a deep journey into the past. Behind today's immense wealth and prestige lies a heartbreaking history that even the stone walls of this city might not know. It all began in a remote village, far away, where poverty was a constant, unwelcome guest. When Aryan's father passed away, his only inheritance was the sound of his mother's weeping and a pair of worn-out shoes. At a young age, he was forced to shoulder the heavy burden of his family. Those days were defined by pure, relentless struggle. Driven by hunger, he found work at a wealthy businessman's house. It was there he first encountered the biting sting of cruelty. For the minor offense of breaking a single glass, he was forced to stand outside in the freezing cold all night. Looking up at the dark sky, the hungry, shivering boy sought just a drop of sympathy. But all society offered was contempt. No one showed any mercy to the innocence in his eyes. In those desperate times, a ray of hope appeared. An elderly schoolteacher saw a spark of brilliance in Aryan and gave him a chance to study. But the path was anything but easy. His life became a grueling cycle, working as a porter by day and studying under the dim glow of streetlights by night. He often felt that the world wasn't run by emotion, and to survive, one had to become as hard as a stone. Years later, a scholarship brought him to America. He arrived with only $100 in his pocket and a mountain of determination in his heart. Standing at JFK Airport, surrounded by a bustling crowd, he felt an overwhelming sense of loneliness. It was a profound, emotional moment because he knew there was no path leading back. His early days in America were even more challenging than he had imagined. From driving taxis to washing dishes in the back of a restaurant, he did whatever it took to survive. One night, exhausted after a long shift, he fell asleep in a subway station. In his sleep, a flashback hit him with the force of a lightning bolt. He remembered his mother's last words. "Son, the sky is vast, but you can't see its greatness if you keep your head down." Those words ignited a volcano inside him. He realized he couldn't afford to be ordinary. He took the little money he had saved and started learning to code. His life became a relentless routine, 18 hours of work, followed by hours of studying technology trends, day after day. 4 years. Then came the moment of intense suspense. Aryan, armed with an app he had poured his soul into, walked into a meeting with major investors. At first, everyone dismissed him. But his idea was so heart-touching and so practical that it sent shockwaves through Silicon Valley. Today, Aryan's company, Luminous, is one of the world's leading tech firms. But the biggest twist in his story came decades later, when Aryan returned to his home country. He learned that the cruel businessman who had once humiliated him was now destitute and ill, abandoned by his own children. It was a moment of ultimate karma, a profound realization. But Aryan felt no hate. Instead, he picked the old man up in his car and took full responsibility for his medical treatment. As the old man wept, clutching Aryan's hand, Aryan understood that true success isn't measured by a bank balance, but by the ability to forgive. Through this long and arduous journey, Aryan learned that every wound gives birth to a new strength. Today, he is not just a successful entrepreneur. He is an inspiration to millions, a living testament that if you remain steadfast in honesty and hard work, you can start from zero and reach the very pinnacle of the sky. Can you imagine being thrown onto the streets of a foreign city in the dead of winter, with nothing but a few dollars and a child to protect? Or being so poor that the taunts of your classmates become the soundtrack to your childhood? These aren't scenes from a movie. These are the real-life beginnings of two people who would go on to change the world. Their stories are about hitting rock bottom, about facing cruelty and despair, and then, against all odds, rising to heights no one could have ever imagined. Stay with us, because these journeys of heartbreak, struggle, and ultimate triumph will redefine what you believe is possible. Let's start with Maya. Picture a biting Chicago night, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones. Maya is on her hands and knees, scrubbing a frozen floor. She has no gloves. The only things keeping her company are the chill and her silent tears. It's hard to believe that this woman would one day become the chief scientist of a world-renowned biotech lab. Her path there was paved with profound tragedy. When Maya first arrived in America, her heart was full of dreams. She envisioned a happy home, a new life filled with love and promise. But that dream shattered almost instantly. The cruelty she endured from her husband and his family was relentless. One night, it reached its peak. They threw her out of the house, onto the midnight streets, with almost no money to her name. In a country she barely knew, the feeling of utter helplessness was overwhelming. She was a homeless mother in a vast, indifferent city. She found refuge in a dilapidated shelter, a place that offered little comfort. Her only solace, her only reason to keep going, was the look of pure innocence in her young daughter's eyes. That look was her lifeline. It gave her the strength to fight for survival every single day, to choose battle over surrender. Every day was a relentless struggle. By day, she cleaned floors in a large hospital, the smell of disinfectant clinging to her clothes. By night, she'd retreat to the quiet of a public library, using their free computers to devour medical journals. feeding her mind while her stomach often remained empty. There were nights when hunger gnawed at her, and all she had to fill her stomach was water. But she refused to let her pain or her emotions become a weakness. She channeled every ounce of her suffering into a quiet, burning determination. Then, one day, a small ray of hope pierced through the darkness. A senior surgeon at the hospital happened to see a complex scientific paper she was reading. He saw past her cleaner's uniform and recognized a brilliant mind. Intrigued, he struck up a conversation, and her depth of knowledge astonished him. That surgeon became her champion. He helped her enroll in a community college, opening the first door to her forgotten dream. The days were grueling, a constant juggle between exhausting manual labor and intense academic studies. Whenever she felt her body and spirit start to break, a somber flashback would haunt her, the memory of the humiliation, the contempt in her in-laws' eyes as they cast her out. That insult, that raw memory of being treated as less than human, didn't break her. It magnified her determination 100-fold. It became the fuel for her fire. Years passed. Maya, through sheer grit, completed her education and began her career as a researcher. Her focus became a rare, aggressive disease that had stumped the medical community for years. She poured her life into finding a cure. After 5 long years of relentless work, sleepless nights, and countless failed experiments, she was on the verge of a breakthrough. The lab was filled with an almost unbearable suspense. The final clinical trial results were about to be revealed. Her entire career, her entire life's struggle, hinged on this single moment. Then, the news came. Success. The medicine she had developed was effective. It worked. Today, that very medicine is saving thousands of lives around the world. But the most heart-touching, the most unbelievable twist in Maya's story was yet to come. One day, she learned that her ex-husband, the man who had thrown her and her child onto the streets with such cruelty, was now facing death. The disease that was killing him. The very same rare illness for which she had created the only cure. This was the ultimate moment of karma, the universe bringing their paths crashing together once more. What would she do? Would she seek revenge? Would she let him suffer as she had suffered? Maya did something that shocked everyone. She did not seek revenge. She didn't even hesitate. She personally oversaw his treatment, ensuring he received the life-saving medicine he so desperately needed. Her actions spoke louder than any words ever could. Maya's journey proves that the world isn't conquered by hatred or revenge, but by merit, by forgiveness, and by unyielding hard work. Now, let's turn to another incredible story. As Elias stood on the opulent stage of a Silicon Valley conference hall, launching his revolutionary AI startup, Vision X, the flash of 1,000 cameras was a stark contrast to the pitch-black darkness where his journey began. The billion-dollar empire he commanded today was built on a foundation of profound heartbreak. Elias grew up in a crumbling, forgotten industrial town in the Rust Belt. He watched his father, a man of steel and sweat, toil away in a mill every single day. Then, the mill closed, and with it, his family's livelihood vanished. Their world collapsed into destitution. His childhood became a daily struggle for the most basic things. He often didn't have pocket change for school lunch. This made him a target. He was relentlessly mocked by his peers for his worn-out clothes and his family's poverty. They called him a future homeless person, their cruel laughter echoing in the hallways. But despite the ridicule, the spark of innocence in his eyes never died. Instead, their cruelty fueled a fierce, burning determination within him to rewrite his destiny. As a young man, he moved to New York, chasing a dream he couldn't yet define. The reality was harsh. He spent his days delivering pizzas, the smells of other people's warm meals, a constant reminder of his own hunger. He spent his nights sleeping in a cold, cramped garage. Those days were intensely emotional, a lonely fight for survival in a city of millions. One night, during a heavy blizzard, his life hit a new low. His bike skidded on the ice, and he crashed, falling into a gutter. He lay there, bleeding and freezing. As people walked by, their faces turned away from the boy in the snow. No one offered a hand. In that moment of absolute despair, a complex emotion took hold of him, not just sadness, but a powerful rage mixed with an unbreakable desire to rise so high that no one could ever look down on him again. His ray of hope came in the form of an old public library. It was warm, it was safe, and it was free. There, he discovered the world of computer programming. He began teaching himself, devouring books and online tutorials. His body was perpetually exhausted from his delivery job, but his mind was on fire, racing like lightning. Often, when he was close to giving up, a flashback would come to him, the image of his father's worn, calloused hands. That memory was a powerful teacher. It taught him that nothing of value is ever earned without sweat and sacrifice. This vision gave him the strength to work 80-hour days, coding until his eyes burned. Years later, armed with a brilliant, self-taught mind, Elias was ready to make his move. The moment of high suspense arrived when he went to pitch for his first major business deal. He walked into the boardroom, and across the table, he saw his primary competitor. It was the same schoolmate who had led the chorus of mockery years ago, the one who had called him future homeless. The air was thick with tension, but Elias didn't flinch. He presented his algorithm. It was so elegant, so precise in its efficiency, that it left the tech giants in the room stunned. That deal catapulted him from a garage to the global stage. Elias had no idea his grit and his vision would one day place him among the world's wealthiest innovators. But the most powerful chapter of his story was written years later. The same former bully, his own ventures having failed, was now bankrupt. Humbled and desperate, he showed up at Ilias's corporate headquarters, asking for a job. This was Ilias's moment of karma, his chance for payback. But like Maya, Ilias chose a different path. He didn't turn him away. He didn't gloat. Instead, he offered him a position with dignity. He believed that true change, true strength, comes from forgiveness, not from holding on to hatred. The lives of Maya and Elias teach us a profound lesson. They show us that where you start in life does not have to define where you end up. They prove that you can build your own destiny, brick by painstaking brick, if you have unshakable faith in your own hard work and the grace to forgive. Their stories remind us that the deepest wounds can give birth to the greatest strength, and that even from the darkest nights, a new dawn can rise. In the gleaming heart of Seattle, atop a skyscraper, lies a sprawling green oasis. This is Gabriel's rooftop garden, and as he gazes down at the mechanical city below, his eyes hold a profound calm. A calm that was forged in the fires of a stormy past. Today, Gabriel is celebrated as America's leading expert in vertical farming. A pioneer who turned concrete jungles into verdant food sources. But the path he walked to get here was paved with heartbreak. It all began with his father, a simple factory laborer. A terrible accident on the job left him unable to work, but instead of compassion, he was met with nothing but cruelty. His employers, the very people he had given his strength to, saw him as a broken tool. At just 12 years old, Gabriel watched as his father was unceremoniously discarded, tossed aside like a piece of faulty machinery. That night, the weight of the world settled on his small shoulders. Looking at the innocent, trusting eyes of his younger siblings, a vow took root in his heart. He would never, ever surrender to despair. His childhood became a relentless struggle for survival. Before the sun rose, he was out delivering newspapers, his small hands stained with ink. In the afternoons, he'd scour the city, collecting scrap metal to earn a few extra dollars. At school, the other kids weren't kind. They'd mock him, calling him future trash, destined to follow the same broken path as his father. But their taunts didn't break him. Instead, the raw emotion swirling inside him, the anger, the sadness, the injustice of it all hardened into a fierce, silent resolve. He wouldn't just survive. He would prove them all wrong. At 18, desperate for work, he found himself on a construction site in the blistering Texas heat. The sun was merciless. One afternoon, under its scorching gaze, his body gave out, and he fainted. When he came to, he wasn't met with a glass of water or a helping hand. He was met with a shower of insults from his supervisor, furious about the lost time. In that intensely emotional moment, a cold, hard truth hit him. To some, a laborer's life was worth nothing. He was just another disposable part in a vast, uncaring machine. But even in the barren desert of his life, a single ray of hope managed to break through. He met a retired agricultural officer, a kind old man who saw the fire behind Gabriel's tired eyes. This man became his mentor, teaching him the incredible synergy between soil science and modern technology. After a long day of grueling manual labor, Gabriel's work was far from over. Under the dim light of a flickering lantern, he would pore over books about hydroponics and advanced farming techniques. His nights were filled with study, fueled by flashbacks of his father, Estepus, regret never having a small plot of land to call his own, to nurture and grow something beautiful. Those painful memories became the very fuel that kept him awake, that pushed him forward when exhaustion screamed for him to quit. Then came the moment that would define his future. With every penny he had saved, a meager sum earned through sweat and sacrifice, Gabriel took a monumental risk. He rented a derelict, abandoned warehouse and set out to build the city's first indoor agricultural farm. It was a time of intense suspense. He poured his heart, his soul, and his last dollar into this dream. Just days before his very first harvest, disaster struck. A massive lightning storm swept through the city, knocking out the power grid. His entire crop, months of tireless work, was at risk of dying. Alone, in the vast, dark warehouse, lit only by the frantic beam of his flashlight, Gabriel worked desperately to fix a backup generator. The roar of the storm outside was matched by the storm of doubt raging within him. It felt like defeat was inevitable, like the world was conspiring to crush him one final time. But fortune, as they say, favors the brave. Through sheer force of will, he got the generator running. His innovative technology not only saved the crops, but went on to produce a record-breaking yield that sent shockwaves through the entire industry. He had done it. Today, Gabriel's company is a titan of urban agriculture, providing stable, dignified jobs to thousands of once unemployed workers. He builds lives just as skillfully as he builds farms. But the story doesn't end there. The most stunning twist, a true moment of karmic realization, came a few years ago. The very factory owner who had callously fired his father, the man who treated him like garbage, came to Gabriel for help. He was bankrupt, broken, and desperate. Gabriel looked at the man who had caused his family so much pain. He could have turned him away. He could have savored the revenge, but he didn't. Instead, he offered him a modest, respectable job. Gabriel understood that true victory isn't about hatred or getting even. It's about building a life so successful, so full of purpose, that the slights of the past become meaningless. Gabriel's journey is a powerful reminder to every hardworking soul that the sweat of your labor is never, ever in vain. Now, let me tell you about Nathan. As he stood on the stage of an elite charity gala in Los Angeles, impeccably dressed in a suit that cost more than most people's cars, his mind wasn't on the applause. It drifted back to the dark, grimy alleys of this very city, where he once scavenged for scraps of food in dumpsters. Nathan's beginning was not just difficult, it was profoundly heartbreaking. He lost his parents when he was just a boy, and the cruelty he endured from his foster parents was a nightmare no child should ever face. Then, on a freezing winter night, when he was just 16, they threw him out. He was kicked onto the cold, unforgiving streets with nothing but the clothes on his back. That night, as he pleaded for help, no door would open. No building in the entire city offered any shelter to the look of pure, innocent desperation in his eyes. He spent the next few years living on the streets, a ghost in the city of angels. It was a period of unspeakable struggle, a constant battle against hunger, cold, and a crushing loneliness that made him feel like he had no place in this world. But even in that darkness, he refused to let the fire of his spirit die. He knew, with every fiber of his being, that he had to escape this hell. His ray of hope didn't come from a person, but from an object, a discarded laptop he found near a curb. That, combined with the free Wi-Fi at a public library, became his lifeline. While others on the street saw only trash, Nathan saw a door to another world. He began to teach himself how to code. People around him, even other homeless individuals, mocked his ambition. But his determination was unshakable, as solid as a mountain. His days were spent washing cars for spare change, and his nights were spent hunched over the glowing screen of that battered laptop, immersing himself in the world of programming until the librarians gently told him it was time to close. The past was a constant companion. He'd have frequent flashbacks to the days of ridicule, the contempt in his foster parents' eyes, the feeling of being worthless. But those memories didn't crush him. They burned within him like a refiner's fire, turning the raw, painful ore of his life into pure gold. Every single moment of this phase was intensely emotional. This wasn't just about learning a skill, it was a fight for his very existence. Then came the moment of ultimate suspense. Nathan developed a revolutionary security system software. Through sheer persistence, he got a chance to pitch it to a major Silicon Valley firm. He walked into that boardroom with nothing but his battered old laptop and an immense, unshakable belief in himself. The investors, in their expensive suits, initially looked down on him, seeing only a scruffy kid from the streets. But as he began to speak, as he demonstrated his software, their condescension turned to shock, and then to awe. They were stunned by his brilliance, by the innovation he had created from absolutely nothing. Today, the technology Nathan created is a cornerstone of global data security, protecting the information of millions. He became a self-made billionaire. But the most heart-touching part of his story, the moment that truly defines him, came next. Nathan took a massive portion of his profits and used it to build a state-of-the-art, permanent housing complex for the city's homeless. On the day of the inauguration, as he stood watching families move into their new, safe homes, he saw a familiar, stooped pair. It was his former foster parents. The ones who had once thrown him onto the street without a second thought were now bent with age, wandering, and in search of shelter themselves. It was the ultimate moment of karma, of realization. Nathan felt no hatred, no desire for revenge. Instead, he quietly arranged for them to have a place to live within the very complex he had built. He proved that the greatest revenge is not lowering yourself to your enemy's level, but rising to a height of success and compassion they could never even imagine. Nathan's life teaches us an unforgettable lesson. No situation is permanent. No beginning is a life sentence, as long as you possess an indomitable spirit. As Nathan stepped onto the stage, the gala lights glinting in his eyes, everyone held their breath. They were expecting a jaw-dropping announcement about a new tech breakthrough or maybe a multi-billion-dollar expansion. The air crackled with anticipation. But Nathan didn't reach for a slide clicker or a microphone. Instead, he slowly pulled a worn 20-year-old business card from his pocket. The room fell silent. You could hear a pin drop. In a calm, steady voice that carried across the vast hall, Nathan began. "Tonight," he said, "I'm not here to talk about profits or projections. I'm here to make the most important announcement of my life." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "Effective immediately, I am donating my entire $50 billion empire. Every stock, every asset, every single penny, to a new global public trust. A trust dedicated to orphaned and homeless children all around the world." A collective gasp swept through the audience. People turned to each other, their faces a mixture of confusion and utter disbelief. Whispers erupted. $50 billion. Everything. Why would a man at the absolute pinnacle of success just give it all away? It was a moment of pure, unfiltered emotion, an act so radical it was almost impossible to comprehend. But the real shock, the moment that would define the entire evening, was yet to come. Nathan then did something no one saw coming. He turned his gaze to a quiet corner of the room and said, "I'd like to invite two very special people to join me on stage." An elderly couple, looking frail and overwhelmed, slowly made their way through the crowd. They were his former foster parents. As they walked, trembling, their eyes filled with tears. It was a look of profound realization, a dawning understanding of the past and the man their former foster son had become. The audience tensed up. Was this it? Was this the moment of revenge? Was he about to publicly humiliate them? To recount the years of suffering they put him through? The suspense was unbearable. But Nathan wasn't interested in revenge. As the elderly couple reached the stage, he did the unthinkable. He knelt down, right there in front of thousands of the world's most powerful people, and gently touched the old man's feet. It was a gesture of deep, profound respect that silenced the entire room once more. He looked up at them, his voice soft but clear. "If you hadn't kicked me out that night," he said, "I never would have found my own strength. Your cruelty was the blessing I never knew I needed. It was the ultimate karma. Not an eye for an eye, but hatred conquered by pure, unadulterated forgiveness." In that instant, the dam broke. Across the hall, thousands of people were moved to tears, witnessing an act of grace so powerful it felt almost divine. And then came the final, most astonishing twist. Nathan stood up, took off his perfectly tailored, expensive suit jacket, and laid it gently on the podium. From a bag nearby, he pulled out a worn, patched jacket, a relic from his days living on the streets, and put it on. "As of today," he announced, his voice ringing with a newfound freedom, "I am no longer the CEO of this company. My work here is done. Starting tomorrow, I will be a simple volunteer at the first homeless shelter we built. I have given away my wealth. Now, it's time for me to give my life." With that, Nathan turned and walked away from the podium, disappearing into the shadows backstage. The hall erupted, a thunderous, deafening standing ovation that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building. His exit was 1,000 times grander than his entrance. In that one night, Nathan proved to the world that true success isn't measured by a bank account, but by the legacy you leave behind in the hearts of others. His incredible journey from nothing to everything, and then back to a different kind of nothing, became an epic saga. It taught us all a timeless lesson. While it's amazing to build an empire from scratch, the greatest victory of all is having everything the world can offer, and then choosing to give it all away for the sake of humanity. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that inspires.